We are at step 1, enter the data into a spreadsheet. So I open up Excel. I may have to go to Microsoft Office to find Excel. Use two columns. One has a column header of date recorded, and the next column is number of hours. So this is the days that I had to have the windows closed and the number of hours that day the windows were closed. Okay, I'm typing. Oh, I get this is weird. Why is that to the left? I can pull these column headers out and then notice that the date recorded and the number of hours here, and I can pull this out, those are left aligned with this. Oh, look, 888. Excel interprets that as text because there's no such date. And the values that Excel does recognize as date, which is actually number, and over here just numbers, are right aligned. So as I'm typing, I can see errors, and I'm going to go up into the formula bar and fix that and see if it then becomes right aligned. So I'm typing, everything is entered, and now the next step is format your data into a table. So as long as we have our data in proper format, which means no blank rows and no blank columns within the data, then what we can do is easily turn this into a table with our cursor anywhere in this like rectangle of data, and go to Insert and then find the icon that looks like a little tic-tac-toe box, and Excel will ask you to confirm where the data is, and importantly that my data table has headers, so it knows that these are actually the headers and not just another row of data. I say OK, and then depending upon your preferences that you've set up in Excel, this table may have different formats. If you're not happy with that, with your cursor in the table, this table design menu appears, and you can choose various pre-formatted options. One thing that's important to know is you can uncheck the header row, and what that does is it basically gives you just the table. You go back to table design, recheck the header row. Sometimes in order to show filter buttons at the top next to the header here, which are very useful, you have to go to table design and then check and uncheck the header row, and then you can select the filter button. So that's one benefit of a table, the ability to use these drop down buttons for sorting and filtering. The other big advantage is that if you have an Excel table and you add a new row to it, it will automatically increase the size of the table, and if you make summary tables or charts based upon this, then those will also automatically expand. Now insert a column chart. Insert column chart. And if you're not sure, you could just click here and open up all of them. Depending upon what you last had open, you can switch from recommended charts to all charts, and try clustered column, which is the first option. The charts that span so much time might be hard to read, so let's pull this out a little bit so we can take a better look at what is actually showing on the x-axis here. So you could see that because this is a date column, and when I click on a value like this high spike, then you could see that the actual values that are plotted is highlighted in the sheet. And what I notice right now is all my values are pretty low around here, and then there's this one high value. Also, there are these huge gaps. Well, the reason there are these huge gaps is because this is the winter months, and I actually didn't collect any data during those months. When you take a look at your chart and you want to perhaps edit a component of it, you have to first select it, because right now you see there aren't any chart tools menu items. Once you click on your chart and select it, then you have new menu items that are in green that apply specifically to what you've selected here, which is the chart. And if you go to Format, then you have this box here which lets you scroll through the different components of your chart to change something about them. So right now the chart area is selected, but we want to take a look specifically at the horizontal axis, because right now it makes no sense for us to show the winter months. So with this horizontal category axis selected here, then I click Format Selection, and then this box opens up. And here you can see that depending upon how your Excel interpreted this data, it may be automatically select based on data, and I can tell that Excel interpreted this as a date axis because it includes all these dates that I don't have data for. And if I click on this here, date axis, there's no change, which indicates that Excel thinks this horizontal x-axis is a date axis. We don't care about all the winter months. So with this format axis, the horizontal axis selected, we're going to check text axis here. And now what that does is it shows us only those days for which we have data. It still shows the date, but now Excel is thinking, okay, this is just a label instead of actually a date. So now Excel thinks of these, which are dates, Excel thinks of them just as labels to these different categories that are the number of hours that you closed your window every day on these categories/dates. If you wanted to change it back, say you had information about when you closed your windows during the winter too, you could recheck this date axis, and now Excel says, okay, well, we got to include all the winter as well. And for now, though, we're just going to click this as text axis. Now that I'm finished with what I wanted to do to reformat this x-axis, I can click out of this panel, but at any point in time, even if I click outside the graph, then if I click on the graph, these tools come back and I can just go to Format and then choose what I want to format over here in this drop down, as well as add components if you wanted to add a legend or other components. So now is the time when humans get to do the work. The machine has done the work of putting this chart together for us, and now it's our turn to look at this and immediately notice this high spike. So it's impossible for 80 hours to have happened in one day. So we know this is a mistake. We go back and look, and if you want to just click on this one data point, you actually can by clicking repeatedly, and now you can see just that one data point is selected. If I move this chart out of the way, you'll see this data point here corresponds to this 80 right here. That's obviously incorrect. So I go back to Jenny, who is the site operator in this case and in charge of logging the number of hours the windows have to be kept closed, and ask her about that value, and clearly it was a mistake and the correct value is 8. So after noting this conversation in my database logbook, if this were to be legally defensible data, and noting that conversation and when I had that conversation with Jenny, then I can change this value to a value of what it actually is, which is all day long, 8 hours. I had to have that window closed. I changed that in the chart, and now you could see the chart has done automatic scaling. So it used to be that it had to accommodate that value of 80. So all the other values were squished down at the bottom. Now that it doesn't have that big value it needs to include in the chart, it rescaled this y-axis here, which is the number of hours. And you could see that many days, 8 hours a day, the window had to be kept closed. However, the chart still doesn't show any trends. It's really hard to tell from this if there was a change over the years. And I know from my recollection that it seems like it's smokier and smokier every summer, and I have to have the windows closed more and more. So I want to actually look at this in terms of trends. So in our next video, we're going to turn this into a pivot chart that allows us to look at year by year changes super easily.